Now, despite all this information, I can imagine that you still have lots of questions, just as I did and all the students did. Now, since Vlerick Business School promotes openness, we wanted to encourage them and give them the opportunity, and give you the opportunity to send us all these questions. And it is the chairman of the VBO, FEB, the Federation of Belgium Enterprises, who kindly agreed to answer them. Mr. Pierre Alain de Smedt. And how are you?
Same as you.
You're prepared a little bit, huh?
I can
see that.
Yeah, we are very well organized.
Now we have 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I've been told, and so I propose that I immediately fire the first question at you. Sure. It's from a student who says, a recent survey and analysis by the World Economic Forum showed that Belgium again dropped 2 places in the worldwide competitiveness ranking. Now, what priority should our politicians have to turn this around, and what can and should companies do?
Well, first about the study, I wouldn't like to be negative from the very beginning. I'm a fan of positive thinking, and also I hear too much doom and gloom, and the euro that will disappear, and Europe which is falling apart.
But facts are facts, huh?
Facts are facts, but precisely in the study there are a lot of positive things, the traditional positive things about Belgium.
Like
they
what?
underline, well, our quality in terms of education. They underline our quality in terms of healthcare. And a third point, our quality in terms of entrepreneurship, which is illustrated here tonight. Now, of course, we have our traditional weaker points, which are underlined. The one is the lack of flexibility of our work market, we know. The second is our extremely high debt, the 100% of GDP. The third one is the heavy bureaucracy of a too heavy state. And the fourth one is, of course, I would say, our traditional heavy fiscal system. Now, the question is, what should politicians do to cope with the situation? And like our friends from Germany, from UK, from the Netherlands, who improved their ranking, what can we do also to improve? First of all, at political level. Political level, well, we just mentioned it. The state at its different levels in Belgium is much too heavy. We compared with the 3 surrounding countries, we spent outside education and healthcare, which are very important. So outside that, we spent 7.6% of our GDP to the cost of administration. Our neighbors, 5.8.
So that's
Difference
much too high.
Is 1.8%, 6 billion a year. Worse is that we increased the number of civil servants of about 20% in the last 15 years, where our neighbors were reducing. So really, there our politicians have a real challenge. The second point I feel they should do is respect what Herman Van Rompuy is asking from the Belgian politicians, means get in 2015 to a balanced accounts, to zero deficit. They will start shortly, briefly, a difficult exercise to reduce the deficit to 2.1%, another 3 or 4 billions, which will have to be found. The third point is that we should stop in our country with that energetic chaos. It's time to define a strategy, to define a vision, to stick to it, and so that investors can know, and that the population can know that there will not be no blackout like it is feared.
So that should be a priority, but how do we convince all these politicians about that? Huh?
Oh, well, it's our task of all of us, and I think in a large matter they are conscious. My very last point for the politicians are we should, and that's very important here in this audience, maintain the incentives that we have developed for a strong R&D in our country. And last but not least, we should further, and Professor Asperslag just said it, we should maintain a country which is attractive for foreign investors.
That's the politicians.
That's the politicians.
And the companies.
Well, we have our own job to fulfill. First of all, I think, and we have just started, as many of you know, we have just started the interprofessional agreement negotiations. We have today a cost of work which is too heavy. We have a problem of cost, we have a problem of competitiveness. This is all on the table of negotiation, will be a hard time. But what we can do as entrepreneurs is inside our companies improve the flexibility. And there is still a huge potential to reach a better productivity. The second point is we have regularly in our country, in Europe, generally speaking, a problem of finding the talents. And you maybe remember in the first half, we had the European Business Summit, where we asked to the CEOs, especially also in Belgium, what are the talents which are missing the most? And they answered us. We had expected that they would say the STEMs, science, technology, engineers and mathematics. No, the answer was we need and we miss people with talent on international business. Very interesting response.
That's why your forum next week is being international.
Absolutely. So that's the point of finding and developing the talent. Also, we should stop complaining too much about the famous mismatch. We have in Belgium 100,000 jobs where we permanently don't find the candidates. So we should develop and find a way to develop those talents also internally. That's using much more the famous dual system of Germany or Switzerland, the famous alternate system. And third point, to recover, I think we must develop inside the companies much more a culture of developing international business. So these are three recommendations, I would say, to improve the climate.
Now, in the same line, would you say that there's a significant difference in the competitiveness amongst the different sectors of the Belgian economy?
Oh yes, there is a significant difference, and it's easy to understand. We have, of course, in our country, we have companies which are exposed to international, local and international competition, others which are not. And that makes a huge difference in competitiveness as a result. The second thing is those who are selling commodities against those who are unique with their products and services. There also, it's known the profitability is very different. Now, I want to mention that Belgium has been good in developing the new sectors, the sectors where you find the rentability and where really there is future. And these are the green economy. Yeah. This is all what is related to healthcare and also specifically with education.
Now for students, and this is another students who asked this question, who most of them still have to figure out in what kind of job to start. Of course, your career path is impressive as well, to say the least. Now, how did you manage your career, and what could you tell us that could be useful for all those students who don't really know and are hesitating where to start?
Well, I remember when I came out of the Solvay Business School. I was 20 years old, and I had to start. Nobody's perfect, But I'm 68 now, and be confident, I still can become an alumni of Vlerick. So at 21, most of us don't exactly know what they should do, what they could do. And probably I was lucky I started in the IT sector, which probably helped me a lot during my career. But now, on the specific question, and it's easy now after the facts to analyze it, what was the base, what was the reason?
After it's always easy.
Yeah, afterwards it's always easy. But I can tell you a few indications which were leading my career. The first point, I think, you need to have passion for what you do. It's so fantastic when your job is also your hobby. And I had, from my very, very young years, I had a passion for automobiles, and I made 40 years of my career with automobiles. So first point is clearly passion for your service, your products. It's fundamental. The second point is expertise. You know, today, authority does not come from your title. The authority will come from the respect people have for you, and authority will come indirectly. They will have respect for you because you have a know-how, you have expertise in your job. And if you let me, I don't know if I'm not exaggerating with the time, but well,
it's okay.
It's okay. Allow me an anecdote. I decided at a point in time to leave Volkswagen after 25 years and to start with the Renault Group. It was difficult to refuse it. It was a succession of Carlos Ghosn as number 2 of the Renault Group. And I was asked to take in my responsibility the full purchasing worldwide, manufacturing, and development of cars. Now, when you do that, you put all let's say, you put everything at zero and you somewhere have to restart. I arrived my first day at Renault in charge of development, and the very first day I was asked to give my advice on a car which was in development. It was the Laguna. And I arrived in a prototype room, and there were about 100 engineers, the top engineers of the Renault Group, and they were looking and they say, well, this is the prototype, the car will be produced soon. What's your feeling? What's your advice? And then that's the moment people judge you and they look whether you have or not expertise. And well, that has been my job my whole life. I've had as professor somebody you certainly well know at Volkswagen was Professor Dr. Ferdinand Piëch, who is probably the best engineer of this last century, and so I had fantastic education. Well, I showed them, I said, this is not okay, this we will have to change, the customer will never accept this, and after 1 hour it was won. But my point is, you cannot develop your career at a high level if you don't have a level of expertise. My third point is not about opportunism, but is a question of being at the right place at the right moment. Yeah. That means you need to know who will influence your career, who will be the decider, and decide that, as it occurred with me, that I would take the responsibility of South America for Volkswagen, so becoming there the CEO. And I knew extremely well who would take this kind of decision.
So what you're actually saying in life, trains are passing and you have to jump on the train when it comes along, because it doesn't come along every day, right?
You use exactly the expression. Yeah. That means you have to be in the station, the train stops,
and look.
Doors get open, be the first to step in, of course, reasonably, but...
No, not like that.
Of course.
Okay, so passion, expertise, and being at the right time, at the right place.
Fourth one and last one. We have seen that yesterday with our football team. We say they are fantastic, they are excellent, but still they couldn't win again Croatia. You, at the end, have to bring results. You have to be a doer. You have to be hands-on. Otherwise, they won't give you a chance.
Okay, well, that's very, very interesting. Thank you.
Now, you were asking me, or the student was asking, yeah, what kind of job should we do at the beginning? And let me express just a little disappointment. I look at all business schools, and I see which kind of job people take at the beginning. And I will say something not against consultants or not against the Big Four auditing companies, but I'm really amazed how many people start their career there. And for me, it's somewhere delaying the entry in the real business.
And why is that? Why is everybody choosing that?
I think it's a kind of fear, lack of knowledge. This Monday, my friend Luc de Bruijker was mentioning how important is the industry. You should remember that industry is still 15% of the jobs in this country, but it is 3/4, 75% of export and 80% of R&D. So look at industry. It's a nice business.
Okay. Well, I also like your answer, the first answer, about passion, because I remember somebody who was actually hesitating which job to take, and he said, I want a job that makes me feel that the Monday mornings are like the Friday afternoons.
Great.
Okay, now, a young manager, do you know what I mean? Just as happy to start your day of work than to start the weekend, is what you say, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it must be your hobby.
Okay, we're on the same line then. Good. Now, a young manager says, I'm struck by how few people actually want to change. And I'm not talking unions or rank and file, but also managers. Now, how do we get people to see the gain rather than the pain of being proactive?
Well, you know, it's about mentalities. And let's face it, these last decades, Europe, Belgium, we have not been among the most dynamic people about change. I remember the time I was in Brazil, and I could see in São Paulo people with their mobile phone. And so it was extremely developed. You must remember that country never went through the fixed lines because they were lagging dramatically in terms of infrastructure. But they started extremely emerging countries. We were in the 90s, extremely fast with mobile phones. I was taking the plane, arriving in Brussels. Nobody with a mobile phone. No. That means we were lagging.
We're not the quickest.
We are not the quickest, but that can change. And that's, I will tell you, that's why I have hope. Now, just from a theoretical standpoint, the problem of change and feeling from a strategic point of view when you have to change has been very well analyzed. I encourage you, I cannot go into the details today, but to read the book of our new CEO, Peter Timmermans, who is speaking about what he learned, not specifically at Vlerick, but it was in his experience of Stanford. And
nobody's perfect, as you said.
No, nobody's perfect. But it is very well explained, and he explains that in his book about the question of strategic inflection point, the moment where your strategy will not be still a winning strategy, that you have really to make the change. It was also very well explained last year in the VOCA Congress by Bart de Graaf, the CEO of Bekaert, who was more insisting on the strategic resilience. You put the system under pressure, and at a point in time you have a rebound if the company is reacting well. That's for the theory. Now, the question of the student was, what should we do in practice? Well, let me tell you a few ideas. You need to create a climate which is favorable to change. For me, it means you have to develop a culture that favors the taking of risk, that favors where you accept contradiction, that favors where you accept in a limited way, of course, where you accept the failure. So that kind of culture is very important. The second thing is to promote, as Vlerick does it, entrepreneurial mentality, entrepreneurial initiatives. I can tell you, in my life, probably I should have been fired many times because, and I do not encourage you to do that, but sometimes you are put in a situation where you have to take a decision, even if it's beyond or outside your official delegation of power. Again, I do not encourage you not to respect discipline, but I had to do that a few times for very important things in my life. I was not fired. In each case, I can tell you, after a few days and some threats from the legal department, I was called by the CEO and congratulated for what I done. So,
what you're saying
take
is...
risk.
Yeah.
Take risk and develop a mentality which favors it. Third point, it's typical what Vlerick does, develop and support multiculturality. That means try to forget and to avoid the fear for foreigners. My fourth point is apply, and I've done that systematically in the companies I was in charge of, job rotation, apply job rotation also specifically at international level. Point 5 is not exactly what Mr. Magnet is doing at this stage. Pay for merit. Pay for merit. It stays for me on the base of KPIs and, of course, avoiding abuses. My sixth point is always measure you with the others. Benchmark. Make benchmarks. Know where you are better, where you are worse than others. And last but not least, certainly, let us try to change the mentalities. Stop that doom and gloom, as I say. Our youth, our young people need hope, they need confidence, they need perspective. And that is fundamental. And we have the tools, we have the people for that.
Now, as we just heard, Vlerick is making a big issue about being international and creating a multicultural experience. Now, let's be honest, at the same time, foreigners who want to make it here are having a hard time, especially if they don't speak 2 of the 3 national languages, if they don't speak Flemish or French. Now, as head of the Belgian Federation, or the Federation of Belgian Enterprises, are we too parochial?
Probably. Well, I was saying we have much too much that fear of the other, fear of the foreigners. We must be open. I can tell you, it's incredible the number, the strength, the kind of talent I found specifically in Brazil when I was working in Brazil. And it was not against expatriates, but let me explain what we did. Expatriates is a very, very expensive thing, as most of you know. When I arrived in Brazil, we had exactly 99 expatriates. Big company, but it was much, much too heavy, kind of old colonialism, not the right mentality. And when I left 7 years later, we still had 12 expatriates. And a huge satisfaction is, I remember someone who was my number 2, my Brazilian number 2, was many times by few of those expatriates criticized. This guy, when Lula became president, was elected by Lula as a minister of state in charge of industry, commerce, development, and he is really a fantastic guy. So really, my point is, we must have confidence. We must admit that we are not the center of the world, or the only center of the world, that we have to respect others and feel the potential that they have. So let's be extremely open. I recognize 4 if you receive, let's say, external or foreign managers here, there is always the specific difficulty of our 2 or 3 languages. But I think
we have to start looking beyond our own backyard, as we just said.
Absolutely.
Okay, I still had lots of other questions for you, but we're over time already. So thank you very much, Mr. Pierre Alain de Smedt.
Thank you.